This week, we're going to make a mushroom goulash. It's quite easy to find a good cut of meat and make it the traditional Austrian goulash. But then I found out there's something called a mushroom goulash, which is the same thing, it's just without meat. So when I went to the store to find some cocoa aminos to put into the goulash, they didn't have any. So I found this stuff instead. I was looking at the ingredients, and the main ingredient is lupins. And then I started looking more into this lupin business, and throughout a lot of vegan things, they use lupins. Also, this is definitely not a sponsored video. I don't even know who that guy is. I'm also going to be making some bread dumplings to go along with this goulash. Now, usually you have to put a whole egg in there, and that kind of binds everything together. But today I'm going to be trying out an egg substitute. So to start off, we need to make a vegetable stock. Okay, to start off, we need to get a soup stock on. Now in the supermarket in Austria, they always have these little soup packets with all these things in there, like carrots. We've got some yellow carrot, we've got some celery root in there, some parsnip, some leek, and just, not so good looking piece of parsley. That's what you want in your soup stock. I also added a little bit of garlic in there. So we're going to get this on the stove and get it, get some little caramelization going on it. Then we'll mix some tomato paste through it and get the water in there. As you can probably see, got my vegetables in the pot there, cooking away. Now we're just going to throw in the piece of parsley. I should have also mentioned before, make sure you peel your garlic. The carrots and everything's okay, but the garlic, you don't want the paper in there because we will be using these vegetables later on to help thicken the stew. So, once you've got enough colour and stuff on them, you just want to give it a nice big squeezer of tomato paste. We'll get that mixed in and we'll just let it cook out for about a minute or so. I've let it cook out for about a minute or so. That's just a personal preference with the tomato paste. I don't like tomato paste is very strong unless you let it cook out a little bit. But if you like that strong tomato paste, you can go ahead and skip that step of cooking it out. So once you've done that, you just want to go ahead, and I've got some water here that I've just boiled in the kettle. As you can probably see in the shot there, that's my kettle. Alright, so we're going to tip this in. I'm probably going to add one more kettle full of water to this to make it full. And then we're just going to let this go ahead and simmer away for about 45 minutes. As you can see, I got the pot filled up and it's nicely simmering away, not too rapidly. So now we're just going to partially cover and we're going to let that do its thing for about 45 minutes to an hour. To make the vegan semicanoodle, we're going to need to use an egg substitute. On the package of this, it says you've got to add 5 grams to 50 mils of sparkling water. So I've got 5 grams of the egg substitute. Just going to put it in and we're going to mix this together. 5 grams of the egg substitute with 50 mils of water says it's equivalent to using 1 egg. And you need the egg in the semicanoodle to help bind everything together. So we'll get this all mixed up and then we'll get the rest of the ingredients combined. Okay, I've got my dried bread cubes already in a bowl here. Now, I like a lot of parsley in my bread dumplings. So you don't have to add that as much as I do in the recipe, but I highly recommend it. It's pretty damn good in there. So I'm going to add that. And then all I got here is a 1 onion that I've finely diced and then sauteed off in a bit of sage oil. You don't have to use sage oil, but I had some lying around in the kitchen. So that's what I sauteed my onion off in. Then we're also going to add the egg substitute. So I've got 350 mils of cashew milk here. Now I won't tip it all in at once, but I'll tip a majority of it in, then I'll give it a mix, and I'll see how everything's binding together. That was about 300 mils worth, and we'll go ahead and get this mixed up, and we'll see what it's looking like. As I'm mixing it together here, I can already feel that it's going to be too dry, so I'm going to add the rest of the cashew milk. Also, with the amount of liquid you're going to be using, if you've made your own breadcrumbs, it may take a little less or a little more. It all depends on what type of breadcrumb you're using. You could need a little more or a little less milk. You're just going to have to tip it in bit by bit as I did. And then once I get it all mixed in and it's looking at the right consistency, I'll let you know what it looks like. And I almost forgot. We've got to add some salt into this. So my lovely assistant here, that was a heaped teaspoon of salt that we added. So we'll mix this in. So I did add about another 50 mils of cashew milk to mine. Now, the consistency you're looking for is something it feels quite dense at the moment. And once you squeeze it together in a bowl, it does come together, but then it breaks apart quite easily. So at this point, I'm just going to flatten it out on top. And we're going to put a piece of plastic in here so it's in contact with that. And then we're going to let this sit for about 15 or 20 minutes to let the bread fully hydrate properly. My stock bubbled away for about an hour there. And I just strained it off into another pot, just like that. As you can see, it's got a wonderful red colour and I've tasted it. It tastes really good. It's got a nice red color from the tomato paste. Don't get rid of your vegetables just yet. We're going to take some of these later on, blend them up to help thicken the sauce. Okay, I've got my pot on the heat here with a little bit of sage oil. Again, you don't have to use sage oil. I've got it in the kitchen, so I'm using it. Now, I've just gone ahead and chopped up my mushrooms into small pieces. I've got some normal white button mushrooms there and some shiitakes. So I'm just going to plop those in. Also here, I've got some wild foraged porcini mushrooms that I got from my wife's uncle and auntie. They were dried. I've just rehydrated those in some cold water for, well, since I started this whole process of making this. And yeah, I just roughly chopped those as well. So we're just going to get these all mixed together. We're also going to add just a little bit of salt, and we're just going to saute these off for a little bit here, just to try and get rid of some of the water and just get a little bit of color on these mushrooms. As you can see here, I didn't put too much color on them. I just mainly cooked them out to get some of the water released out of these mushrooms. So now we're going to go ahead and get these removed from the pot, and then we'll get the pot back on a medium heat. I've got the pot out. I've just put a little bit more of the sage oil in, and now we're going to go ahead, bang in the onions. These onions, as they release some of their liquid, we're also going to get all that, any bits that's stuck on the bottom from the mushrooms. And we just want to cook these over a medium heat for now. And we just want to cook these down with a little bit of colour on them, but make sure nothing burns. Should take about 10 minutes. We'll come back and carry on with the next step. Onions have been cooking for about 10 minutes here. As you can see, they just got a little bit of colour on them, which is just perfect. They're nice and soft, and the bottom of the pot, we scraped up all that good fond left over from the mushrooms. So at this point, I'm going to add some smoked paprika, and then we're just going to stir this into the onions real good, and just let this cook off here for about 30 to 45 seconds. Now I'm going to add in all the mushrooms, and we're going to stir all this in, and get all the mushrooms all coated in the paprika as well. As you can see, it's all nicely incorporated. Now I'm going to go in with the stock. Nice red colour on that stock. And also we're going to go in with the liquid that I rehydrated the mushrooms with. So we'll plop that in. So as we bring it up to a boil, also we're going to add the seasoning sauce in. So once this comes up to a boil, we're going to lower it down to a simmer on a low heat, and we'll just let it simmer away there uncovered for about half an hour. So my dumpling mixture's been resting away. Now we're going to form them into balls. Now, to get the most smoothest balls possible, there's a little rule. Wet hands make smooth balls. Grab some of the mixture and just form it into a ball. I wouldn't go too big on these. As long as it fits into the kind of the palm of your hand like that, or even a little bit smaller, but I wouldn't go too much bigger than that, because otherwise, for me, they get a little, they're not as good. The smaller balls are better. Once you get it formed into a nice little bowl, just want to go ahead, put it in a tray, wet your hands again, because wet hands make smooth balls. You just want to go ahead and form the rest of them. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and formed them all up. And a couple of you eagle-eyed viewers might realise that this side they look a little different. That's because I purposely made extra of these. There's something called Tiroler Speck Knödel. And pretty much it's just bread dumpling, but you mix bacon in with it. Specifically, bacon from Tyrol. I strongly advise that you make extra of these bread dumplings, because whatever you don't eat with the goulash, tomorrow you cut them in half, toast them off in a pan with a little bit of oil or butter if you don't want to go full vegan, and they are absolutely amazing. Now we'll get a pot of water on the boil and we'll get these cooked off. I've got a pot of water and it's boiling at the moment, but as I put these dumplings in, the temperature of the water will drop, and we want to cook these at a simmer. We're just going to load them all in, like so. Once you've got them all in the pot, you just want to keep this at a simmer, and we're going to let them cook for about 15 minutes. After they've been simmering away for 15 minutes, we're just going to take them out of the pot with a slotted spoon, put them in your dish, and they're ready to eat. It's been bubbling away here for about, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour. I haven't really been keeping an eye on the time, but the consistency is what we're looking for. As you can see, it's slightly reduced. Now is the perfect time to add some more stuff, or to add some chunks so we got something to chew on. Okay, I've got some button mushrooms here that I've chopped into sort of squares like that, and also underneath of the button mushrooms, I've got some shiitakes. Now when I was cutting the shiitakes up before, I took the smaller ones and I left them whole like that. And if they're a little bit bigger, I just chopped them in half like that. So we're going to plop all those in. Also, I went ahead and I cut up 3 carrots into about the same size chunks as the button mushrooms. I'm going to plonk those in. A can of white beans that I've just drained off. So I'm going to plop those in. We'll get all these mixed in. And then we're going to keep on cooking this on a nice low simmer until the carrots are cooked. And then we'll come back. And I almost forgot. We're going to put some thyme in there. And we're also going to add a little bit of salt at the moment. Now, don't go too crazy on the salt. Just add a little bit now. And then once the carrots are tender, we'll taste and we'll season it up properly at the end there. Because at the moment, if you put too much salt in now, or if you season it perfectly now, by the time this reduces and the carrots are cooked, it's going to be too salty. So as I said, just put a little bit in. Then once the carrots are soft, we'll come back and we'll taste and season properly then. So I just checked my goulash and it's just about ready. But we need to thicken it. So I've just taken some of the vegetables I made the stock in. I've taken some of the stock liquid and I added some aquafaba, which is just the juice from the can of beans that we put in there. Now I'm just going to blend these up and then we'll add it to the goulash. So I've checked my carrots and they're pretty much done. And it should look a little something like this. So after you've blended up vegetables and the aquafaba and all that good stuff, you just want to go ahead and add it to your goulash. And then we'll just mix it all in. And you just want to cook this a little bit until it's thickened to your desired consistency. So I've just given it a taste. I'm going to add another tablespoon of the seasoning sauce. And we're going to also add another teaspoon of salt. So we'll give that a mix in. We'll taste it again for seasoning. And then it'll be ready to serve. So I've adjusted the seasoning how I like it. I've just let it cook for another few more minutes just to reduce it a little bit more. And that's the exact consistency I'm looking for. Now, as this cools, it will tighten up a little bit. So when you're doing yours, just be aware of that. So now it's time to plate. Now I have been tasting a little bit of this and it's very mushroom forward, obviously. Has a very, very deep umami flavour from the mushroom. It's so rich and creamy. Dare I say, I don't even miss the meat in this dish. Let's give the bread dumplings a go. I'm very interested in this because I've never made the dumplings without egg before. And I just noticed they have a very lighter colour because usually when you put the egg in, it makes them a little yellower. Let's give this a go. Doesn't change the flavour of it at all. All it did was change the colour to a little bit lighter. They actually held together really well, which was the main thing why you put the egg in. Overall, this is a really good vegan dish.